Hey everyone, welcome back to Retro Reel Recaps. Today we're diving into the movie In Our Prime. It's a story about two people, a genius mathematician with a mysterious past, and a struggling student who just can't seem to get math right. Let's jump right into it. At the start of the movie, we're introduced to a top-tier school in South Korea. This school is so elite that only 1% of students get in. But there's a boy named Han Ji-woo, and he's having a really hard time fitting in. Back in his old school, Ji-woo was the smartest kid in class. But here, everyone seems to be way ahead of him. He's always at the bottom of the class, especially in math, which is super important for getting into college. The other kids in his class are all from wealthy families, and they can afford private tutors to help them study. But Ji-woo is on a scholarship, so he doesn't have the money for extra help. His math teacher, Mr. Kim Gun-ho, warns him that his grades are too low to get into any good college. He even suggests that Ji-woo might want to leave this school and try somewhere else. One night, Ji-woo's roommates give him some money and ask him to sneak out to buy alcohol and snacks for them. But on his way back, the school's night watchman Lee Hak-sung catches him. The next morning, Mr. Kim questions Ji-woo about who else was involved. But Ji-woo stays quiet and doesn't snitch on his friends. Because of this, he gets kicked out of the school hostel. Later, his roommates try to give him some money as a thank you for not ratting them out, but Ji-woo refuses to take it. He considers them his real friends and doesn't want their money. Now that Ji-woo is gone, his friends find it harder to order food from outside because the watchman, Hak-sung, is always on the lookout. They call him Comrade Officer because he's a defector from North Korea. Meanwhile, Hak-sung visits his doctor, who tells him that working as a night watchman isn't good for his health. The doctor advises him to stop relying on sleeping pills and to find a different job. But Hak-sung explains that because of his defection from North Korea, this is the only job he can get. The doctor tells him to keep taking the pills until he finds something better. After the appointment, Hak-sung goes back to his lonely home. He spends most of his time feeding his pet turtle, drinking strawberry milk and solving Sudoku puzzles. Back to Ji-woo. After being kicked out of the hostel, a girl named Park Bo-ram gives him a ride. She tells him that she used to think he was a loser, but now she realizes she was wrong about him. A few hours later, Ji-woo goes home and cleans the entire house before his mom arrives. His mom is a widow who has worked really hard to raise him. When she sees him in his school uniform, she feels so proud. But Ji-woo doesn't have the heart to tell her he's been expelled from the hostel. Instead, he lies and says he just came to visit and has to leave soon. On his way back, it starts raining, and Ji-woo takes shelter under the school gate. Hak-sung finds him there and, feeling sorry for him, lets him spend the night in his office. While Ji-woo is sleeping, Hak-sung notices that some pages are missing from his notebook, which makes studying even harder for him. The next morning, Hak-sung sends Ji-woo on his way. When Ji-woo goes to his math class, he's shocked to see that Hak-sung has completed his entire homework, and it's all correct. Bo-ram notices this and wants Ji-woo to show it to the teacher, but Ji-woo tells her to keep quiet. After class, Ji-woo goes to Hak-sung to thank him, and asks how he managed to solve the problems. But Hak-sung brushes him off and doesn't give him a proper answer. Later, in the study room, Ji-woo overhears some classmates talking about how their private tutor is struggling with certain math problems. This makes Ji-woo realize that Hak-sung is actually a math genius. Ji-woo starts following Hak-sung around, begging him to teach him math. But Hak-sung ignores him and doesn't seem interested. Ji-woo goes to Hak-sung again and pleads with him to teach him math. Hak-sung tells him it might be better for him to just leave the school, but Ji-woo opens up and says that it makes him really angry to see other kids doing better than him. Hearing this, Hak-sung finally agrees to teach him, but instead of money, he asks for strawberry milk as payment. The next day, Hak-sung meets his friend An Ji-chul, who helped him defect to South Korea. They play games together and talk about their lives. Ji-chul gives Hak-sung a lamp as a gift, but Hak-sung insists on paying for it because he doesn't like taking things for free. That night, Hak-sung sets up some lamps in the storage room, so Ji-woo can study there secretly. He gives Ji-woo 3 rules. First, no one should know that Hak-sung is teaching him. Second, Hak-sung will only teach him math and nothing else. And third, Hak-sung won't discuss grades or tests with him. Ji-woo promises to follow all the rules. Hak-sung then gives Ji-woo his first problem, to find the area of a triangle. Ji-woo solves it quickly and says it's a problem for 4th or 5th graders. But Hak-sung tells him his answer is wrong because he didn't consider the circle drawn around the triangle. Ji-woo feels cheated because the problem was misleading. But Hak-sung explains that his approach to solving problems is flawed. He tells Ji-woo that finding the answer is important, but understanding the problem is even more crucial. Math isn't just about answers, it's about understanding the concepts. As Hak-sung teaches Ji-woo, he starts remembering his own childhood. It's shown that he and his friends were really good at math, and because of that, they received a special pen as a prize. Back in the present after the lesson, Ji-woo has nowhere to stay. So Hak-sung lets him spend the night in the storage room. Ji-woo notices that Hak-sung loves listening to old songs, so they start talking about music. Ji-woo plays the songs on his phone, which makes Hak-sung very happy. Hak-sung falls into a deep sleep and wakes up late the next morning. By then, Ji-woo has already left for school. At school, Mr. Kim announces to the math students that instead of a final exam, their class will participate in a prestigious Pythagoras competition, which will count as their exam. The students aren't happy because they only have 2 months to prepare. But Mr. Kim assures them they can do it, and even win first place. Meanwhile, Ji-woo continues to learn math from Hak-sung every day. Bo-ram notices that Hak-sung buys strawberry milk every day, and starts wondering who it's for. One evening, during a tough math session, Ji-woo struggles with a problem. Hak-sung tells him to try solving it on his own first. If he can't figure it out, Hak-sung will explain it later. After 3 hours of hard work, Ji-woo finally solves the problem. Hak-sung then shares something special with him. A famous mathematician, Bernhard Riemann, once calculated the square root of 2 up to 38 decimals by hand, something that can't be done using any formula. This shows how math can be understood on a deeper level. When Ji-woo asks if his answer was correct, Hak-sung refuses to tell him. He says that figuring out whether the answer is right or wrong is part of the homework. This, he explains, is what a real mathematician does. As the weeks go by, Ji-woo gets better at math every day. But one afternoon, he gets some bad news. His close friend, who is also on a scholarship like him, tells Ji-woo that he's going back to his old school because he can't handle the pressure here. This makes Ji-woo think about his own situation and how poor he is. Bo-ram overhears Ji-woo and says she's in a similar situation. At first, Ji-woo thinks Bo-ram is mocking him because she's rich, but it turns out Bo-ram is also on a scholarship because her parents are divorced. However, she's not actually poor, she comes from a wealthy family. Bo-ram's mother scolds her for talking to a scholarship student and tells her to focus more on her studies. She has hired Mr. Kim as Bo-ram's private tutor, which is technically against the rules because teachers aren't supposed to tutor their own students privately. That night, Ji-woo tells Hak-sung about his friend and asks if he should also go back to his old school. Hak-sung tells Ji-woo never to give up. He says success isn't easy, but if Ji-woo keeps trying, he'll eventually succeed. To prove his point, Hak-sung shows Ji-woo his notebook. He points out that even if the final solution is wrong, the method of solving the problems is correct. That same night, Ji-woo's suspension period ends, and he has to return to the hostel. He tells Hak-sung that he'll miss staying with him. The next day, Bo-ram apologizes to Ji-woo and gives him strawberry milk. When Ji-woo isn't paying attention, Bo-ram follows him to the storage room and discovers his secret. She thanks him for taking care of her friend and asks if she can also study with Hak-sung. Hak-sung agrees but tells her to keep it a secret. Bo-ram also calls Hak-sung comrade officer, which confuses him. He tells her that even though he's from North Korea, he was never in the military, so he doesn't understand why she calls him that. Later, Hak-sung notices some kids smoking but decides not to report them. He doesn't want them to get expelled like Ji-woo. One evening, Ji-woo asks Hak-sung why he studied math so much. Hak-sung replies that he initially studied math to get a scholarship and make his family happy. But the more he studied, the more he fell in love with it. Later, Hak-sung calls Bo-ram and teaches her a trick to play the piano. He assigns numbers to the notes and uses the number pi to create a beautiful melody. In the next math class, Ji-woo uses Hak-sung's method to correct a mistake made by Mr. Kim. However, Mr. Kim scolds Ji-woo and tells him that while his method is correct, the examiner won't accept it. He advises Ji-woo to stick to the conventional methods. Ji-woo argues with Mr. Kim, who then makes him stand outside the class. Ji-woo confronts Mr. Kim, accusing him of trying to humiliate him and get him expelled from the school. He declares that he'll never go back to his old school. Meanwhile, Hak-sung meets his friend Ji-chul, another defector from North Korea. Ji-chul gives Hak-sung a smartphone so they can stay in touch more easily. Later, Hak-sung happily shows the phone to Ji-woo, who notices that Hak-sung is reading large documents on the small screen. Ji-woo asks a classmate to help him access the school's computer lab so he can print the documents for Hak-sung. The next day, the Pythagoras test takes place. Thanks to his improved math skills, Ji-woo does very well. However, Bo-ram struggles to focus during the test. All she can hear is music in her head, and under pressure, she leaves the test unfinished and walks out of the classroom. When Ji-woo tries to contact Bo-ram, she ignores his messages. That evening, Ji-woo and Hak-sung attend a classical music concert. Bo-ram had given them free tickets because her family sponsored the event. Even though Bo-ram doesn't attend, Hak-sung enjoys the concert so much that he even tears up. After the concert, Hak-sung invites Ji-woo to his home for dinner. Ji-woo realizes this is the first time he's seen Hak-sung eating. That night, someone leaks the Pythagoras test online, causing big trouble for the school. The teachers are told to find the culprit quickly, or they'll lose their jobs. Meanwhile, Ji-woo and Hak-sung go shopping for books. At the store, a stranger recognizes Hak-sung. The man is also from North Korea and calls Hak-sung doctor. He reveals that he was Hak-sung's student when Hak-sung used to teach at a university. The man praises Hak-sung as a brilliant mathematician and even mistakes Ji-woo for Hak-sung's son. Hak-sung thanks the man for the memories and quickly leaves the store. Ji-woo asks Hak-sung who the man was and where he used to teach, but Hak-sung refuses to answer. When Hak-sung returns home, he starts thinking about his son. He remembers how they used to eat together, buy turtles, and drink lots of strawberry milk, which was his son's favorite. The next day, the news reports that a man from North Korea named Lee Hak-sung is close to solving one of the most important and difficult math problems, the Riemann hypothesis. A professor named Oh appears on TV and shares his story of meeting Hak-sung during a math competition when they were children. Professor Oh still has the special pen they received as a prize. Ji-woo is the first to find Hak-sung and ask him about it. However, Hak-sung becomes very upset and tells Ji-woo never to mention the Riemann hypothesis again. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim is in trouble because the Pythagoras test has been leaked online, and as the math teacher, he's responsible. One of Mr. Kim's colleagues reviews the security camera footage and finds a way to save him. The next day, Mr. Kim calls Ji-woo and shows him the footage. The video shows Ji-woo leaving the computer lab with some printed documents. Ji-woo tries to explain that the documents have nothing to do with the Pythagoras test, but he has no way to prove it. Mr. Kim tells Ji-woo that the video clearly implicates him, and that no one will believe he's improved so much in math in just a few months. He suggests that Ji-woo should quietly return to his old school, and in return he won't reveal the truth to everyone. However, rumors start spreading that Ji-woo leaked the test online. Bo-ram is really upset because she knows the truth about what's happening. Meanwhile, Ji-chul is also in trouble. North Korea is angry because South Korea is claiming Hak-sung's achievements as their own. The North Korean authorities order Ji-chul to convince Hak-sung to appear on TV and reveal the truth. Hak-sung's name starts spreading everywhere, and even an old colleague from North Korea visits him, urging him to return. But Hak-sung gets really angry when the man asks about his son. Ji-chul apologizes to Hak-sung for not being able to keep the National Intelligence Services away from him. Hak-sung thanks Ji-chul for protecting him all these years. As Hak-sung packs his belongings to leave, Ji-chul returns Hak-sung's valuable research papers. The North Korean authorities had tried to destroy these papers, but Ji-chul kept them safe all these years. At the same time, Ji-woo arrives at Hak-sung's place, but decides to wait outside when he hears shouting. Hak-sung is angry because his research led to his son's death. He refuses to go on TV and reveal his findings. After Ji-chul leaves, Ji-woo tries to talk to Hak-sung, but Hak-sung tells him that their relationship is nothing more than that of a teacher and student. Later, Bo-ram calls Ji-woo and asks why he's letting all this happen to himself. Ji-woo tells her that everything is over for him and hangs up. Meanwhile, Hak-sung goes to the bus station, where he sees a boy who looks like his son. This makes him remember the night his son was killed. It's revealed that Hak-sung's son had argued with him before defecting back to North Korea, where he was shot at the border. Meanwhile, Ji-woo goes home and secretly stamps the transfer papers to his old school while his mother is asleep. The next morning, he gives the papers to Mr. Kim, who tells him he did the right thing. At the same time, people are searching for Hak Sung so he can appear on TV. Bo Ram calls Hak Sung and is shocked to learn that Ji Woo is planning to leave the school. That afternoon, the Pythagoras Award ceremony takes place. Bo Ram sneaks into the school and takes Ji Woo inside. The ceremony begins with a speech by Professor Oh, who talks about the importance of mathematical discoveries. In the middle of the speech, Hak Sung arrives. He proves his identity by showing his special pen, and Professor Oh welcomes him warmly, giving him the floor to speak. Hak Sung starts his speech by joking about his job as a security guard. Then he reveals that he taught Ji Woo math. He shows the printed documents that Ji Woo had brought from the computer lab and declares that Ji Woo did not leak the test online. He accuses Mr. Kim of being the real culprit because Mr. Kim had secretly given the test to one of his private students. Hearing this, Mr. Kim storms out of the room, feeling angry and embarrassed. Hak Sung then shares his personal story. He explains that he left North Korea to study math because the government there wanted to use his research to build weapons. He wanted his math to be used for good, to help children get good jobs or get into college. However, his son died because of people's greed. Hak Sung admits that he feels ashamed of his research but is grateful to Ji Woo, who always kept his secret, even when his own future was at risk. Hak Sung then leaves the stage. Ji Chul gives Hak Sung a new passport, stating that he is now a South Korean citizen. He also arranges for Hak Sung to leave the city temporarily to avoid the intelligence agencies. Although Ji Chul will likely lose his job for helping Hak Sung, he's happy to have helped his friend. Sometime later, Ji Chul visits Ji Woo and gives him a gift from Hak Sung, a special pen and his research papers. 3 years later, Ji Woo and his college friends visit the largest mathematics research institute, where Hak Sung now works. Ji Woo surprises Hak Sung by bringing him strawberry milk. The two hug each other, and that's where the movie ends. If you enjoyed this recap, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more movie recaps. See you in the next video.